Oh, welcome to episode number 6 of SI Lab, which stands for SI Lab Laura and Brian. And today we've got two guests. We've got Nathan Spinelli and we have Grace Owens Sparks, who is a returning guest. So welcome back, Grace. And Nathan, happy to have you here. This is the first time we've talked in person. So we're going to be talking about SI sleep in each position because all of us have sleep in a different position. So I thought what I would do is we'll have Nathan and Grace introduce themselves, tell us your full OPS type, how you got into OPS, and anything else pertinent you want to share.
Okay, so am I going first then?
You can.
Or okay, I'll go first.
Yeah, go first.
Sleep first goes first, right?
Sleep first goes first. Sweet. So Nathan Spinelli. So my full type, I'm an audio TiSi sleep blast play consume. And I got into OPS, gosh, 2017, 2018. I didn't join the class until later, but I started watching the videos back then, trying to figure out, just myself and working on myself. And been kind of in the community, little here, little there ever since. And I mostly enjoy learning about myself and how I operate in conjunction with my wife and my kids, trying to make our lives the best that they can be.
Hey.
Okay, I'm Grace. My type is double feminine SITE blast sleep play consume. I got into OPS through YouTube, consuming things in my IJ box, and and the algorithm, sometimes forces me to look at new things. And yeah, I watched some of Dave's videos and they made a lot of sense. And then I found that there were more recent things, watched some of that, and then then it felt like a challenge to learn, so I wanted to do that. And yeah, and I mean OPS, I've always liked personality stuff because I think it's really helpful to have words for the way the world works, to be able to be like, oh, that's what that is. Language always helps. That's why we have words for different diseases and stuff. So I think the same thing applies in the mental, emotional spaces.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm Laura, and my OPS type is MF SITE blast play sleep consume. So I'm representing sleep third. And I got into OPS in October 2018. I kind of stumbled upon it by accident. I was in other typology Facebook groups, and the algorithm suggested objective personality group, and I thought it was kind of more, I didn't realize it was a different system. I thought it was, how to measure type more objectively and not make these subjective judgments that so many of the other groups were doing, which to an extent it did do, but I was surprised to find out it was a whole new system. So I went into the Facebook group and I'm like, what is consume? What is blast? What are these masculine, feminine functions that people are talking about? And the people in the group are really supportive, and they helped me understand it. And they recommended Dave Superpower's channel. I watched the videos, joined the class, and then a few months later, in March 2019, I got typed.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I guess I'll go.
I didn't say I was, what was it, 2021? That's when I found it. So there you
go. So I'll go fourth since I'm sleep last. And then I'm gonna go ahead and interview the three of them, and then Laura will interview me. So give you a little SI script there for anybody paying attention to us. That's what we're gonna be doing. I'm MF, TeSi, blast, play, consume, sleep. So just pretty close to Laura. A little off. I think, what's that, 2 coins different?
2 coins.
Yeah. So I dabbled in Myers-Briggs for a while, and I've always been interested in personalities and social psychology and learning about people and self-development and all that good stuff. In 2020, I was asked, I was talking to somebody that's in the Myers-Briggs community, and objective personality came up in the conversation, that they thought that I would really like it and I'd find some value from it, because there was some uncertainty as to what my Myers-Briggs type was. I think the uncertainty was more about my perceiving function versus the rest, but nonetheless. And so I got 2022 came around. I decided to dive in February 6th and got shaved July 2nd. And here I am, trying to learn the system as good as I can and put some meat on the bones and doing a lot of consume cheating, which is my favorite term for. I tend to learn by talking and conversing with people versus diving into the traditional ways. You know, consume is a demon for me, so these conversations are very helpful. So I'm very grateful.
And I mean also learning from play as well.
Yeah. So yeah, consume cheat with my crackhead functions, pretty much, which leaves sleep last, which leads us to our topic tonight.
Double activated play.
Yeah. Well, that's
Super.
So I'm going to go ahead and start and ask questions to Laura to kind of shine some light and give her a chance to illuminate and describe to everybody what her sleep is. It's in the 3rd position. And with that, Laura, go ahead and take it away and kind of tell us, what does it mean to you to be sleep 3rd with your functions?
Okay. Well, I thought I was sleep savior because I feel like I'm doing so much processing in my head. And Dave and Shannon talk about how sleep saviors are more introverted, and I thought I was an introvert, and and a lot of people get it upside down because I'm just in my head a lot, I'm reflecting a lot. Sometimes I'd rather be staying home and by myself on my own than out socializing. So kind of all that anecdotal stuff. So I was surprised to find out that I actually had sleep as a demon. But then when I learned more about OPS, it became apparent to me that sleep was my demon, because when I learn, I do learn best from conversing with other people and having someone to bounce off of. It's harder to just like reflect and trust that I got it all right. And some of that is related to consume demon as well. It's quicker for me if I'm learning like some new technology, for example. Here, show it to me. Show me how it works, rather than having to read through a long manual to figure it out. I'd rather learn it through another person. And another thing I noticed about myself is that I'm not really as in touch with what I feel deep down as I'd like to think I am. And a good example of this was when I was in graduate school, and I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I went to graduate school in biochemistry, and I was doing it because I thought, well, people will think I'm smart if I have this advanced degree, and I'll get a high paying job, and all these TE reasons. And I was miserable there. I suffered, and I'm like, why am I doing such a poor job when I know I'm smart? And it was just because graduate school is such an intense focus. You really got to know what exactly you want for your future. And I was used to kind of being spoon-fed things from my teachers and kind of having more that back and forth interaction in grad school. At least the program I was in, kind of demanded more sleep energy, and I wasn't as in touch with that, and my heart wasn't really in it. And then I kind of found that out that out later, that joining a grad program just to look smart or have a high paying job isn't what you should be doing. So that's kind of one example. And I think as I've thought about it some more, I think people with high sleep are better at setting boundaries sometimes and saying no. And sometimes it's hard for me to say no. And sometimes I will tend to take on more and more and kind of pile things on my plate. And it's like, okay, oh, can you do this video, this interview? and you know, and I want to do it. You know, it's almost like I kind of want to do them all. You know, I want to, and I kind of came to that realization. So I think in that sense that, you know, taking on all these commitments, and even though I may not always be the most socially extroverted person or the one that's, you know, talking the most necessarily, there still is that tendency to kind of expend that energy, and then later on kind of crash. And because it's third though, I mean, there is some awareness of it, so the crashes aren't as dramatic as I think they would be if I was sleep fourth. And you know, and then there's, of course, I do have some ability to kind of reflect on myself and see my own self patterns. So it's not as bad as sleep fourth, but it's not as good as the Savior sleep.
So I like what you said about the boundaries, and that's a lens that I've kind of been looking at myself too. So can you look at your life as it and see any point where the boundaries started to show themselves a little bit more firmer, and give you a chance maybe to respect yourself better from a values and FI perspective?
Well, I think before, I mean, when I was younger, it's like if somebody invited me to some social event, you know, I kind of said yes to almost all of them. Okay. You know, as many as I could. And now I think I'm a little more choosy. It's like, well, does my FI really want this? Am I really going to get much out of it? Do I realistically have the time? How is this going to affect my other activities that need to get done? How is this going to affect my well-being? I mean, when I was younger, I used to not think too much. Okay, you know, if you go out late to this event, you know, you're only going to get 4 hours of sleep, and then you're going to be grouchy the next day when you have to get up early and go to work. And I didn't really think about those things. And now I'm kind of taking that into a little more consideration.
Yeah, so I guess you have to go through some iterations and some successes and failures to be able to discern where the firm FI boundaries and values are, and when to speak up for yourself.
Or even sometimes when somebody wants me to do a task, you know, it's kind of hard to say no. You know, like I can say no if it's a TE reason for it. Like if I literally don't have the time, or I literally like don't have enough money or something, those are TE reasons. I can say no if they're TE reasons. It's hard for me to say no if it's just an FI reason, like I just don't feel like it, or I just don't want to. Yeah, you know, because I always feel like there's going to be pushback from the other sides. They're going to demand the reasons, because I guess as being a Savior TE myself, I want to know reasons. If somebody were to say no to me, I'd kind of want a good reason for it. So I kind of assume.
Right. So your standards are pretty high for defending and standing up for your own values versus compromising and doing what you perceive my TE want otherwise to do.
Yeah.
So are there any benefits to being sleep demon that you've identified as you process this?
Benefits to being sleep demon?
Yeah. I'm
I just want to make sure I heard that question right.
No, you heard it right. I'm just curious, as if you know.
Well, I mean, it's just flipping the coin upside down. I mean, you know, it's easier to look at it as what are the benefits to be in Savior play.
Sure.
And the benefits to be in Savior play are, you know, being able to expend energy and getting things done, and it's like at work, you know, people always say, oh, you're you know, you're always doing things, you're always have like all these projects you're doing and keeping busy with things, um and you know, even though like socially sometimes I'm not the most talkative person at work, it's because I'd rather be doing things and focused on tasks, and that just might be an energy dominant thing as well. So I think it helps there, and then also it helps when I want to learn something, you know, being able to learn from other people, and kind of knowing, you know, who has good information and who I can learn from.
Okay, fair enough. So which kind of tools or methods have you had some success with as you progressively increased your sleep processing and tried to be a better version of Laura through that process?
Well, I think now I'm focused more on my physical well-being. So I'm kind of, you know, taking my diet seriously and exercising regularly. I'm trying to get into a more regular sleep schedule, and that's been a challenge, because sometimes, you know, like it'll be 11 o'clock at night, and it's like, okay, I should be going to bed because I got to get up at 7 tomorrow, and I should have 8 hours of sleep. But then it's like all these things are demanding my attention. You know, it kind of feels kind of OE in a way, kind of, you know, because I always kind of from the play, you know, and it's like sometimes it's hard to slow down. So sometimes, without really meaning to, I'm not going to sleep until 1 o'clock, you know, or 2 o'clock, and you know, I just want to be better about getting into a better sleep schedule.
Okay.
Because I do find that when I'm well rested, you know, I am in a better mood, and sometimes ultimately I'm more productive. Sometimes I make the mistake of thinking, well, if I short myself of sleep, I'm going to gain more time, and I'm going to get more done. And actually, it doesn't always work that way, because yeah, you're awake more hours, but then you're less efficient when you're awake, and you're more miserable. So sometimes it's best to just get the full 8 hours of sleep and be rested. So that's kind of something. Yeah.
So so exercise is the big answer I heard from you there. So that's helped you quite a bit to maybe get to the bed a little bit better hours, or maybe exhaust yourself? How's that work positively for you?
What did you say?
Well, you said exercising was one of the tools that you used to help you through this. So does the results of that, the improvements you see, are in what form? Is it just kind of like letting the stress out of your body?
I think just a better mood, and I mean sometimes it's just you know, for health reasons, you know, it's kind of like, well, the studies say it's healthy to exercise, you know, so therefore I exercise, you know, even if I don't feel like it, you know, the TE is telling me you should exercise. So
okay. Yeah, I'm sleep last, so I'm trying to consume cheap here. So I'm just wondering, collect a bunch of good tools from my toolkit.
And you know,
no, that's fair. That's good. It's good. So anything you want to share about, you know, being sleep demon, or anything of any kind that you think might be insightful for folks to get a little lens on you, or what that is about?
I think one thing is that like my demon sleep is double masculine. So sometimes there's sort of like this inner lying, and like I gotta suppress it. Kind of like on the surface to everybody, oh, you're so kind and you're so pleasant and you're accommodating and you're positive and you'll say yes, and you're upbeat, and then kind of on the inside there's kind of more like aggressive impulses that I've got to suppress, you know. And because they say like the like if your double masculine animal is SF, you know, that tends towards physical aggression. So so sometimes it's like, you know, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, and like I'll feel like I wanna scream or or punch something, and I'm not maybe actually doing that, but just that, you know, that impulse there. And
Yeah.
one person that I was talking to recently said, well, like she could kind of sense that on the inside, like you're trying to hold back anger or something. And like and I'm like, really? You know, okay.
Wow.
Because I try to hide that from people because, you know, I don't feel like I'm allowed to show that side, you know. So it's,
This somebody knew you real well. Maybe they picked up on that pattern.
yeah. Well, like one of my ex-boyfriends said that too. Said like when you get mad, you really get mad.
Mm. Everybody listen, keep that in mind.
Laura, can I ask you a quick question? Since you're being more aware of it now, like what are you doing to try to access that and kind of push on it a little more on the sleep?
Access my sleep. Well, I just taking, you know, making sure I have time each day just for myself, you know, where I don't have to, you know, follow demands of anybody else. So
Mhm.
outside of work, you know, like away from social media. And so usually it's just going for a walk outside and just kind of having a chance to reflect on things. And making sure I get some time each day to do that.
Mhm. But you do find that you really do have to shut out everything to be able to do that. It's not something you
Well,
can just do while doing something else, or do you find that you can do that at the same time?
well,
Like if you were doing dishes or something.
sometimes I'll do something else at the time. You know, like sometimes I'll try to, you know, self-reflect, but then what I'm doing is I'm on my phone and I'm scrolling through things, or I'm responding to somebody's Facebook post, and I'm like, well, when I'm doing that, am I truly reflecting deep down? Probably not.
What about times when you're doing stuff when you're not like interacting, like I meant with like chores, mowing the lawn, dishes, laundry, stuff like that, where
Yeah. Sometimes I'll reflect then, you know, while I'm doing the task. It kind of makes it go a little faster.
do you have to think about it actively though, or does it come naturally during those types of tasks?
I think sometimes it comes more naturally.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when I'm doing, like, especially if it's a repetitive task and you just kind of
Hmm.
almost mindlessly do it, and then you kind of
Right.
zone out, and then so then your mind can kind of wander and reflect more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real good line of exploration because, you know, sometimes we stumbled into some activity that might get us in sleep processing. We didn't intend to, you know, whatever it might be. So
Hmm.
that's good self-discovery and note-taking to do that activity perhaps more so that you might get a little bit more opportunities to engage that. All right. Well, Laura, we're going to get more from you as we progress through this, but thanks for sharing that with us as sleep third. And for the listeners, we're going to go 3, 2, 1, and then sleep last. That'll be me. So that means that Gracie is going to share her experience with us. So just open-ended question, Gracie. What does it feel like to be sleep second, sleep savior? And do you feel like that really matches who you are?
Well, it's funny. I'm not the only sleep savior in my family, and I wouldn't be surprised if the person in my family who hasn't been typed is also a sleep savior. And none of us are particularly good about self upkeep. And that's like a sleep stereotype, right? It's like, oh yeah, the person that goes to the dentist every 6 months. like they're supposed to. It's like, okay, well, that's not, you know, the person who's gotten me to do that sort of thing is my husband, and he's a sleep demon. So, you know, but I guess so being a sleep saver, it's helpful, obviously, you know, I don't know, you know, for me, it's sleep and play are on the poles, so they work pretty well together. But I will definitely get in a mindset where it's like, oh, I need to just sleep process this for the foreseeable future, and eventually I will get to the point that I realize that no, I need to go do some play with the outside world, check in with their thoughts on things. But yeah, I think I watched a video recently where the person was saying, you know, with sleep, we think the answer is within yourself. It's not out there. It's got to be, if I dig through my files long enough, I'll find it. And it's not necessarily true. And that's the thing, is that's when I end up playing or consuming, is when it's like, I've looked at all the files, there's a gap right here, it's not here, I've got to go ask somebody. So but I do think the benefit, I guess, is you check in with yourself, you know, about, is this something that makes sense for me? You know, that whole live your truth thing. I wonder if that's like a sleep deal. It's cheesy sounding, but you know, if somebody calls you a name and you're a play savior, I assume you just like keep skipping along and don't worry about it. But I think like as a sleep savior, like, is that me? And you sit there, you know, next to the window and stare at the clouds until you figure out whether you agree with it or not. And so, you know, there's a lot of, I think you can skip some steps if you are able to sleep process that a play saver would have just had to like try to zoom through.
Yeah, so when life or people or circumstances give you something like what you just expressed, what does that look like? You know, like for myself, I'll speak just real briefly. It's like I would probably catalog it and then maybe I'll address it later, right? Do you like dive right into it? And if you do, what does that look like?
One of the first times I realized my light died. Observer problems. One of the first times I recognized sleep was I did this thing when we're on the way back home from hanging out with people, something social, where it's like I'm replaying the night in my head and looking for anything that I need to be aware of or that I could have done better. And I'll get through all of that. And now that I'm married, part of what I do is every once in a while, I'll suddenly ask Eric a question like, what did you think it was weird when I said da da da, you know, and he'll be like, huh? No, that's normal. And like, okay, and I go back to sleep processing. You know, so it's like, oh, you know, not everyone does that, right? Eric's not doing that. He's singing along to Ed Sheeran.
So it's like you're incorporating it and pondering it in the moment pretty frequently.
Yeah, and I hate it. Like it's not that I like doing it and I get mad and I'll get into a mode where it's like I'm rebelling against sleep processing. It's like,
Wow.
no, I don't want to hear anything going on in my head. I'm just going to listen to podcasts for the foreseeable future.
So kind of like numb out from your own interior thought processes.
Because sometimes I'm not right and it's just annoying. Or other things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's so foreign for me for that because to numb out from it, like I lean into it in the rare times when it happens, and it has to be with intentionality. I guess are you find out that you just get wary or something? What kind of emotions do you feel when you feel like maybe numbing out or checking out from going inside and maybe addressing something that maybe I can wait for later?
I mean, I think that I blame my sleep when really I should be blaming my lack of consume most of the time. Uh, it's like I don't even want to think about it, but really what I need to do is something totally different. And there's like too many things going on, and I feel incapable of sorting through them all, which of course I feel like Dave would be like, that's not what you need to do in the first place. You don't need to sort through what you need to do. He'll go into intuition mode. Um, I don't like guessing. And so I just sit there with the, metaphorical pieces of paper staring, the crazy cork board with string thing. That's my brain. I'm just like staring at it. Like I'll figure it out eventually. And sometimes it gets so, paranoid and crazy looking that you're just like, I don't want to look at this right now. So and
So
maybe if you went to the library and read about one of the things on your corkboard, you'd get somewhere. Self.
yeah, so what kind of exterior signals do people see from you? And I've run into folks that are in that mode you described, so I kind of know it when I see it because I've engaged so many people out and about. So what kind of cues do you think people in your immediate family or circle see in you to know maybe you need some space, or you're engaging something they need to leave you alone, or that you're engaging something and they maybe need to help lead you out of it because they see you need to break from it? Is there any
Yeah, well,
tips to your family?
I don't have double masculine sleep, so I'm the weird one here. My mom also has double masculine sleep. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never really had well, with my husband, I don't have an issue with I guess he just lets me do it. I mean, he's an IP. He's gonna let you do the IP thing.
Mm.
I guess that makes sense. uh so yeah, I don't really run into that. I think a lot of the time that I end up sleep processing is when he's consuming something that I'm not necessarily interested in, reading some article about some random thing. um yeah, my mom would butt in on it sometimes and we would butt heads for sure. Like when I get home from school, I would want to process the day, and she wanted to anxiously do play demon with me. And it's like, I'm stressed out right now. I don't want to do this. Like, she's like, how was your day? Like 20 questions. I'm like, can you just leave me alone for like 30 minutes, please? um, she's technically more extroverted than me. She's sleep less, play. So, um, yeah. So what are the signs? I probably look more tense. I'm probably shorter with you, less words. Um, I mean, those are probably the main things. Uh, and I try to like power through it. And when I'm powering through it, maybe that's like I don't know, just not as like goofy as I could be. Like trying to have a good time, but you can tell that they're like, I think a lot of the time someone like me will just be like, oh, I'm just tired. you know.
So I call right or wrong. I call blast and sleep to consume the consolidation animals because they tend to have things pre-processed and ready for their own internal consumption or for outward blasting. So your SI, your sleep is SIFI, as is mine and Laura's. We'll talk to Nate, and he has a different form of it. But so your SI skills in toolkit, how does that specifically manifest in your sleep from your perspective?
How does my toolkit manifest?
Well, how does the SI, your sleep is SIFI. So how's SI involved in that for you? What does that look like?
Yeah. So funny story. Nathan is one coin off of my mom's type. So I say that because I grew up in a very SITI environment. So I don't think I respected or thought I was supposed to do the whole SIFI thing. My mom wasn't doing it for sure. Maybe my dad was. I still don't know what his time is. But as an adult, I've gotten more and more into curating my environment, recognizing, hey, I like wearing clothes that I actually like the look of and stuff like that. Like just, having opinions, having things I prefer, and not for SITI reasons, that it's, the most practical solution to get the job done. It's like, no, I just like it. It's in my house and I like it because it's pretty. So that's definitely been a big part of it. Yeah, it hasn't been like a huge struggle. I mean, it's a savior, so I mean, I've been doing it to some extent, so it wasn't a huge realization, but yeah, I think that's the most obvious thing that's changed.
Okay. So, like, also in terms of your identity and your self-narrative, how SI and FI work with you internally to kind of progressively hone those perceptions.
What were the last couple words you kind of?
Oh, so okay, so your self-narrative and your identity, right? So how do SI and FI combine together for you at this stage of the game and help clarify that or challenge it or whatever happens under the hood?
Yeah. So yeah, this makes me think about counseling. So it's like counseling is interesting because it's like you have somebody with you in your sleep processing, and then it can shift into play processing when it needs to, or when they notice something that you need to actually talk out with another human being. So yeah, I think, sleep can give you, in a positive way, it can give you validation for things that you might have just assumed were not a thing that was very important, or, like if a counselor makes a face at you, when they're trying not to, right? That's their job. They go, oh, it's like, oh, that was a reaction. Well, that's new. So yeah, but learning, being able to practice, even as a sleep savior, doing this stuff on a regular basis with somebody who, is trained in like the ways of psychology and everything, can really help, I think, hone, well, a lot of things, but I think it's easier to recognize now in the moment when something is off, without having to completely like, oh, I have to completely zone out and sleep process this to figure out if what you just said was mean or not, or like, because I don't know, that's what my brain thinks of, like, because normally I do that in the car, but now it's like, oh, I've talked about versions of stuff like this in counseling, so I know that this is that sort of thing, and that's just the thing that people do, and that's okay, blah blah. To be able to figure out, I mean, I'm double feminine, so for me, this is my opinion, I guess, one of my problems is, did I do something wrong? And it's kind of easier to just assume that it was me. So having a as unbiased as possible person to help with that, to train me better to be like, okay, well, if somebody's this way, that's okay. If somebody's this way, that's something they need to work on, and that's not really, what were you doing in that moment? Did it have anything to do with you? Man, I sound like a decider right now. But yeah,
it's fascinating to point to how you queued off the counselors. I have a spiritual director and a counselor, and I'm pretty sure she's sleep first SIFI Delta. And she's done some things like you're saying there. And she's so incredibly perceptive. So I cued off of it like you have there too. So, but I'm glad you mentioned the double feminine SIFI, because me being double masculine, you know, and last, it's like I really wanted to hear and explore how that works differently. Because, you know, I'm known as being a little hard-headed and have this preconceived, firm conceptualization of who I am, for right or wrong. Is it the complete opposite for you, I imagine, or would you speak to that?
Well, I'm double feminine, but my sleep is not. I have masculine FI.
True.
So, yeah, if you hit my FI, then that's another story. You know, I will eventually fight back if you push that button too many times. But yeah, like growing up with my mom, who has y'all's sleep, it was really fascinating that her identity just would not move. Didn't matter what I said, didn't matter how many TE things I, gave her reasons for. It's like, no, this is her view of the world. This is just how things are. And to think otherwise would be silly. Why would I change my thoughts because I'm right on this? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sure you are in some circumstances. So yeah, so we did butt heads because I wasn't particularly movable myself with the FI part, but and it is like that makes total sense, because the SI is the part that I would be like, I get why you're fighting back on this is who I am, but what is with this like refusal to see any other SI way that this is, it's fascinating.
Yeah. So another question on that, or not necessarily on that, but on a scale of 1 to 10, strange question. How sure are you of who you are? Identity, self-narrative, sleep processed. Where do you think you are in your journey?
I think I'm making progress. But yeah, I think before the social type thing came out, I would have said something else, because I'd be like, oh yeah, I think I've got it figured out now. But once the social type thing dropped, I'm like, oh no, who am I? And I run around asking, like, I mean, maybe this is a consume last thing, but I run around asking everybody, who am I? I'm like, Eric, which social type do you think I am? And then I'll give my friends like a brief blast on what the social types are. And I'm like, what do you think I am? What do you think you are? So yeah, I mean, I've been trying to work on that sort of stuff. And it's been helpful to realize that me not knowing myself can hurt other people, So that's been more motivational than just because I never really saw the point. It's like, well, who cares? It's not messing anything up, but it does, have effects that you wouldn't necessarily see coming, I think.
Okay. One more question for you. So here's
I didn't answer. On a scale of 1 to 10?
1 to 10, I was going to give you an out, but go ahead. Yeah, give me an answer.
6.
Okay. Very interesting. I guess as long as you know what it is and you kind of know what growth potential you have, then that gives you a good barometer to work with. So yeah, 6 out there should probably be pretty good for somebody at your stage of the game, sleep second savior. So you're probably right on path in terms of that. I mean, not that I'm the arbiter of it, but nonetheless, it seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah. I'm just making progress, and I'm not trying to force it necessarily. Just atomic habits, eating it a little bit at a time.
Yeah. So then, like, if you say you wanted to magically say, I wish I was an 8, you may or may not, and you jump back 10 years ago and you had 10-year, let's go Gracie, what kind of tools or techniques or processes do you think you might advise her to explore so that you'd be an 8 now instead of a 6?
Uh, counseling, really everything mental health. So yeah, modern medicine is something I discounted based on my upbringing, and it's once you have a doctor that knows what they're doing, it really can make a difference. So yeah, I don't know, but back then I wouldn't have had access to my doctor now because she's my age.
Yeah, but theoretically, a
Yeah.
doctor that's comparable.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I would have just tried to. I guess my assumption was that I was broken, and um, so I think I just try to comfort her and yeah, give her some tips. I mean, I think there's plenty of things I could, help her skip some steps on. I don't know. Is there anything more specific?
Yeah, let me go ahead and do what I call kickstart, like meditation, journaling, breathing exercises, walking in the woods. Do you think, had you explored those plus the counseling, as you mentioned, and anything else that might come to mind? Because we're just exploring the whole sleep processing thing here, so we can collectively get tools from each other, or tips, or reminders, or anecdotes to reinforce and encourage one another.
Yeah, I think there hindsight is 2020. Now I can see that there were certain people in my lives who were giving me the advice that I did need, but everyone was, everyone gives advice. So it's hard to decide who to listen to. So anything that could help with that, just I guess, self-awareness. Like I thought I was self-aware. But 10 years ago, I was kind of on the tail end of college times. And I think at that point, you're still kind of pulling away from the identity you had as being part of your family, making your own identity. So yeah, maybe journaling would have helped. But, I consume cheat too. So really talking to people is really helpful for me. But I have to have somebody who can like actually get it into my brain because, some people have said the same thing to me for 7 years, but I did not know that's what they were saying. I thought they were saying something else, whatever it is. And then I find out down the line, oh yeah, no, I was trying to tell you that. I'm like, what do you mean?
So you mean you're not the only one that things don't sink in the first time? It's not just me, huh?
No.
Oh.
No, and it wasn't like I was purposefully like, yeah, no, I don't want to hear that right now. It was I didn't understand that's what they meant.
Right.
Though there were people that I, purposely did not listen to. Yeah. I personally did not understand how running 10 miles was going to help me. It's just not my jam. I'd much rather do strength training. So.
Nate with a big nod of the head there.
Yeah.
Right, Gracie, thanks for sharing with us. And again, like with Laura, we can integrate you back into this too. Just going through a little procedure, an SI procedure here, 3, 2, then 1. So that means Nate, you're in the hot seat.
It could be really chaotic and go to Brian and then
No. I'm going last. I get the honor. I'm sleep last. I get to go last.
Fair enough.
Nate, you're kind of the experienced sleep processor here because of your age and it being in your first slot. So
yeah,
why don't you just randomly or follow your gut and say what you think would be helpful instead of me trying to pull it out. You're the expert.
So I've got so many thoughts. A lot of them line up with Gracie in some ways. I want to start by actually telling a story because I think the one thing we forget about sometimes when we're talking about sleep is the fact that it's so subjective, right? Because whether you're SI or NI, it doesn't matter. It's still subjective because it's introverted and it's all about yourself and your identity. And I was actually talking to Eric, my type twin, today. So a couple weeks, and I'll relate how well, Eric and I, we both went to or we both been to the New York Museum of Natural History. I went just a couple weeks ago with Wendy, and he's been there too. So I was talking to him this morning, and there's an exhibit there, and it's I can't remember what the exhibit is actually called, but it has all kinds of gemstones in it. So there's crystals and gems and minerals, and they've got everything from, crystal clear, it looks like glass, all the way to super opaque black and everything in between. And for all intents and purposes, if you were to describe it just as an ST thing, it's just a room full of rocks, right? At its most basic core. It's just a room full of rocks. And and so I asked Eric, I said, so what did, here's my experience. What did you experience? And we didn't experience the same thing at all. We both saw the same thing. We were both seeing gems and minerals, and we both thought it was really, really cool. Some of the things they had these giant geodes that were like 8 foot tall. They had one spot that had they had a slab of granite from New York, and then they showed different types of lighting from like UV to regular visible light and different things. You saw different patterns in the rocks, and it fluoresced in different ways, and it was just really cool. But the point is, even though we saw the same thing and we're both the same type, we came away with different experiences. And the experience I had, as and it was I was probably in there for a full hour just going around, and I realized after the fact I was sleep processing this whole time. And what I was sleep processing this whole time was, and I was connecting some dots and maybe doing a little consuming hack, but was just the fact that, and this is going to get very NF woo woo, but it was just, there's so many different people in the world, and I was just thinking about my wife and my kids, and I could almost visualize like each of us like as little just pinned up to the wall with light shining on us, and we all look different, and we have different properties and characteristics. And I remember there was one set where it was they had just the regular kind of out of the ground, cleaned up but out of the ground, non-processed rock, and then they had the same type, the gemstone that you'd cut and polish and make into jewelry. And so you could see the differences, and I was just like, whoa, that's so cool. And the thing I found was, even though like what we were able to make with things is awesome, I was finding myself more attracted to the unpolished, unfinished, just chunk of rock out of the ground. And I started relating that to the people in my life that are important to me, and just how, even though we're all different and we look different and we have different properties, we're all important, we're all valuable. And I was processing this whole time I was going through, and just looking at all these gems. And Wendy was there, and she was looking at them, and we were kind of pointing out different things to each other. Eric did not have that experience at all. And I told him this whole experience this morning, and he's like, no, didn't have that. Like, it was a cool exhibit, but we did not experience the same thing. And so my point is, it's like SI, and I too, but SI can see the same things, can take in the same information, and be left with very different impressions. And Brian, you and I, Gracie, you and I, Laura, you and I could all taste the same food and come away thinking 4 very different things, and processing that same food, that same dish, 4 very different ways. And so that was the first thing I wanted to bring up, is just how subjective SI really is. I think it takes in just as much as the SC to a point. I think the SC is looking for more intensity of experience and things, and so they will actually go out and seek more. But SSIs, we get fixated on certain things, and we just want to keep going and looking at that same thing. I could have spent another 2 hours just looking at gems. In fact, if I was to go back to the Museum of Natural History today, I'd probably just go straight to the gems again, forego everything I didn't see while we were there, and just look at gems for another 3 hours.
Mhm.
And so when I'm looking at my SI sleep, my ST sleep, it's kind of what Gracie was saying. It's mulling over the same things over and over, and it just keeps playing in my head and doesn't stop. And sometimes I would like to shut it off. I'd like to just hit the pause button and let my brain take a break and go do something that's totally mind numbing because it never shuts off. But so that was the first thing. Another thing, I've been writing down notes as we've been going, as I've been processing, because I've been processing this whole time. Wendy, my wife, she gets frustrated with me at times because I process constantly, and that was another thing. And that's kind of why I was asking you, Laura, about your processing. I process constantly, whether I'm doing the dishes or laundry or on the road, or even sometimes it gets in the way of being a pharmacist. Like I'll be, or even like lifting or whatever. I'll be doing whatever I'm doing, and then mid rep or midway through processing a script, or I've even like caught myself a couple times talking with patients on the phone. Like my brain goes into processing something that's totally not related to what I'm talking to, and I have to be like, no, dummy, like talk to them, not yourself.
Yeah, I do
And
that too. I mean,
do you?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to be sometimes fully attentive, and I wonder if it's maybe a consume last thing.
I think consume last is definitely part of it as well, for sure. Because I've found too, like when I'm talking to someone, I need to be doing something physically. So like this whole time as I've been listening, I've been shaking my knee up and down just to keep my brain engaged in something else so I can pay
Okay.
attention.
Here's an anecdote. I got my water bottle here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Some kind of complementary distraction that allows
Mhm.
you to selectively attend as you're supposed to.
Yeah. I've had the pen most of the time, or I'll play with my ring, something. Because if I don't want to consume. Like my brain just doesn't naturally go there. It'll
Yeah,
go right.
sometimes I'll like doodle on my paper. I have
Yeah.
a paper and all.
I doodle far more than I take notes in meetings. It's probably a bad habit. But it's just hard because I'm constantly wanting to go back over my known and the things that I want to go back over. I think it's because I don't want to consume. It's the delusion that by going back over the SI, I'm going to find the new, right? Like by going back to the gyms, I'm going to find some new NE data point that I didn't have before, even though I probably got all the data points I needed from that one time, right? And so it's constantly going back over the known over and over and over. And Wendy gets frustrated with me because even though I'm going over the known over and over and over again, I'm still going over a breadth of things, right? It's not like I'm focused on one or two things all the time in my brain and I only process those two things. I've got lots of things to process. And sometimes it's intentional and sometimes it's just in the background. And that's the thing I've noticed the most is how much I'm processing only recently, how much I'm processing constantly in the background subconsciously, just totally unawares that I'm even doing it. And so what Wendy gets frustrated with me about is this doesn't necessarily get blasted. Just because it's SI blast and SI sleep doesn't mean I'm always blasting everything that's being processed. And so she'll bring up, I don't know, we were talking about some school issues and some political issues that were, crossing roads and things and recently, and she's like, "Wait, you know about this?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." "Well, why didn't you tell me?" And I'm like, "I don't know, because it's just been up in here." And it was funny too, Brian, because when you were asking Gracie some questions just a little bit ago, I was like, "Ooh, I think you need to be more specific, and you need to like not just go fishing, but you need to actually go deep, go diving, and then pull something specific out, or else you're not going to get it."
Mhm.
Because I know that, yeah, that's the way it is for me. Like if Wendy's just fishing, she might catch something, But if she's really specific, and I've told her this now that I've realized it too, because before she'd ask me the question, well, why don't you just tell me these things? And I don't know. Well, what are you thinking about? I don't know. It's like asking my 7-year-old when she gets home from school, hey, what'd you do at school today? I don't know. I don't know. You know, all my kids, I don't know. And so I found that with the sleep, like there's a lot going on in there, especially sleep first. But if you want access to it, if I'm not blasting it to you and you want access to it, you gotta be specific, or else it's just murky waters that you're trolling, hoping to find something.
And one question on that, Nate.
Yeah, for sure.
That is the term configuration management is pretty prominent in my background, and it's like knowing tracking, keeping a track in your head or paper or whatever, and knowing what's covered and what's not. And I've kind of noticed folks that I suspect are sleep first in my life that I've interacted with or out and about. Sometimes it seems that the narrative that they talk to themselves about and what they've shared and what they've not shared, they lose track of. And 100%. Like it makes it to somebody like myself real confusing, because they will say, I know I told you that. And I'm like, I know you didn't. And there's this configuration management disconnect, and I'm asking SI, I don't want to sound wrong, but it's usually correct on that one. And do you find that in any way, one, problematic, or two, is that an advantage to being a better sleep processor in any way?
I think it's both. The disadvantage I'll ring to first. I don't think it's not only a matter of like thinking that I told you something. It's also a matter of thinking I did something. Especially, I think being ST sleep, because I process a lot, but what I'm typically processing is something I'm actually going to do, or something that's what I'm going to do to make work for me. Like the thing, because Wendy has your guys' sleep, right? The SF sleep. And so what I see for her is she's just processing her values most of the time, what she likes, what she doesn't like, what's important to her, and then what she's going to do to act on her values. I'm mostly processing like what's going to work for me in the moment and how am I going to get there? Or what's going to work for me, even planning out, a day, a week, a month, 10 years from now, and how am I going to get there? And so to answer your question, there's a lot of times at work, and I've noticed this especially in the last year, as I've transitioned out of pharmacy more into kind of a management position, there's a lot of times when like I'll write notes, like I'll make a list, I got to do this, 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 and this. And then I find like things I thought I did a few weeks ago or a few months ago, I thought were covered in my brain, they were processed. And I'm coming to find out later, crap, I didn't do it. I thought I did it. I had told people I'd done it. And it might be something simple, but I come to it, but it might also be something crucial. And so like, unless I can physically check off the box and show myself the email or the presentation, whatever it is, I have to be really careful with that, because a lot of times I've actually been running into this recently with a pharmacy I'm trying to get up and running, a specialty pharmacy. And there was something with one of the insurance companies I thought was locked down months ago. It was locked down in my head. And when I went back and revisited it this week, I found out it's not locked down. And not only is it not locked down, I'm going to have some real roadblocks with it, which should have been solved months ago. And so that's the downside. I think the upside is for a lot of things. And I asked Wendy this because I asked her, I said, what do you see me doing with SI? Because I don't typically write down notes or lists or anything. She's like, oh, you just do it up here. And I think that's the case. For most things, especially when life was less complicated, when I didn't have 6 kids, I could keep my schedule up here. I could keep everything up here. And 90% of the time, it was pretty accurate. So I didn't need to worry about reminders. I didn't need to worry about the alarms or the, whatever. I didn't need to have someone help me remember. So it was just there. Especially, I think being double masculine ST helped that as well.
I think it's a masculine SI thing, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Same way. I'm predominantly, it's in my head, and I rarely keep schedules. I just remember.
Right. Yeah. So I think, hopefully that answers the question. The one thing I did want to revisit though real quick was just how often it's happening. I've had some of my best epiphanies, and dot connections and everything. You know, Grace, you're talking about, you know, you've got your board and you got all these different things. I feel like the best connections I make with that is when I'm doing something else and processing. So I've literally, like I said, I've literally been lifting weights and like for whatever reason, it usually happens when I'm rowing. I don't know why, but I'll be like pulled back and I'll be holding the weight, and then I like the light bulb goes off, and I'm like, oh, that's why. And there's been a few times, as it relates to my family, it's literally brought me to tears as you know, I'm doing this motion and kind of crying, and my friends are, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm good, I'm good. I'm just thinking. Because I can't, like I said, I can't shut it off. And I wish sometimes I could shut it off, but it's just really hard. I wanted to hit too on upkeep. You know, Laura and Gracie, you kind of talked a little bit about, you know, maintaining yourself physically, doing the workouts and different things. I don't see my sleep necessarily actively thinking about that, although I know I do. I think for me, it's just more of an energy conservation thing. For example, when I was on my way to work today this morning, and I leave early, I usually leave the house between 5:15 in the morning. And on my way to work this morning, especially, I was, I don't know, 20 minutes into my drive, and I was like, today's going to be a very unproductive day because of da 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 da. And I went through it all in my brain, and it's like, and I was thinking, am I realistically going to be able to get this, and this done? Probably not. I can work on this and this. And I kind of laid the whole thing out, but I knew it kind of at the onset, it's not going to be a productive day. I was joking with Ian this morning too. I was like, I kind of sometimes will plan my down day if I can. Like I know all the things that have gone on this week. It's been a busy week. I've crashed a few times. I still don't remember how I even got to bed last night, just because I've been so busy. But I was like, I think Sunday is going to be my crash day because I've got something on Friday, something on Saturday. Monday we have off, which means I'm going to have to be, you know, doing stuff with the kids and whatnot, you know, for vacation. So it's just like, well, Sunday's going to be the day. I don't know if I'm going to get a nap in or not. That's dependent on a lot of variables, but I know Sunday's going to be my crash day where I'll be up and I'll do what I need to do. But if you know, Laura, you were talking about like when people coming around asking you for if they were to come around on Sunday or even before and say, hey, I need your help on Sunday, I'm going to be like, nope, sorry, you do not have me. When we got back from New York a couple weeks ago, it was a fun, quick trip, but a lot of travel, a lot of things going on. Walked tons and tons of miles. I got home Friday afternoon. We had a bunch of stuff to do Friday afternoon, and it was like Saturday, Sunday, like don't even bother. Like bare minimums getting done with the kids. And like I wasn't actively thinking that. I just kind of slipped into that mode. Like the sleep was just like breaks, done. You're not doing anything other than the bare necessities. Um, and I have found that so true. Even when I have planned something like where I really want to get a lot done, especially in our last house, I owned 2 acres. I was mowing. I had all kinds of stuff to do. It kept me busy. I'd have plans to do stuff, and then sometimes at 10 o'clock in the morning, sometimes at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I could never tell, but I knew when sleep was ready to be done and conserve energy. It's just like break, you done, cut it off. You're not doing any more today. End of discussion. And the more I fight that, that's when I actually get sick. Like physically
Yes.
will get sick.
Yeah.
It's a sign of a savior, right? It's
Yeah, it really is
automatic
trying to
pilot
save me.
looking out
Mhm.
for you in whatever regard, just case putting the brakes on, as you're saying.
Yeah.
So that's just like always accessible to you, that mode. It
Most of
automatically
the
knows when to.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, and most of the time, it's not like it's saying, hey, be careful, hey, be careful. It's just most of the time it just comes up and says, hey, dude, you're done. Like you can figure this out later, or it's not that important or whatever. I mean, obviously there's things that you have to do and you have to just barrel through, and that's fine. But most of the time, it's just like I said today. I knew the outcome of the day before it began, roughly, barring any black swan type of events. I kind of knew what today was going to be like, and sure enough, it's turned out. And that might be self-fulfilling prophecy, who knows? But it's come out exactly like I figured it would. So yeah, that's been really interesting to me. Also, I think, like I said before, I'm just going through my notes that I've been writing down. Consume via blast and the consume via sleep. Sometimes it works. Most of the time, I've learned though, I need to get out of my shell and go ping off people and go process with people. And I like the question that you posed to Gracie. You know, what would you tell yourself 10 years ago? And this thing I would tell myself is, don't try to stop sleep processing. Keep sleep processing. Just go consume more so that you have more to process, so that you have more information to actually make a better decision on. I don't like regret any of my decisions in the last 10 years, but I think I probably would have felt a little bit more calm and had inner peace had I had some of these tools. Sorry, I'm OE channel changing all over the place, but it's all based on sleep, so it's all good. I think the other thing too,
Kind of
this
in
is
the same
another
box.
thing. What's that?
It's in the same box.
It's in the same box, that's right. The other thing I delude myself into thinking is that my ST sleep is going to figure out all my NF problems. I do have instances like with the gyms at the museum where I do put things together. I think that was kind of a form of consume because it was something else coming in to kind of prompt that. But especially like leaving organized religion and kind of trying to find a lot of that NF as an alpha I need to NF play, which is the exact opposite of my ST sleep. And so my ST sleep, again, it thinks it's going to go over the known and figure it out and bang the blocks together. And I've just not found that most of the time it works that way. I actually have to go out and be with people and play and ping and enjoy things and have dinners and do sports and do all those things that people normally do together to find that. Where I think I get the impression like my wife being SF sleep can access that a little bit better than I can. And she's NF consume too. So those two just for her just work a little bit better together. And for me, if I'm going to NF, I've got to go out and play. What else? No energy. Sorry, I'm just going on my.
No, I'm letting you go, man.
Yeah. Oh, music I found is another one. Music's another one where I do a lot of sleep processing. I will listen to music on my way home sometimes, especially if I'm trying to wake up because it's been a long day, especially in the wintertime because it's dark all the time, and I need to stay awake. But I find that I'll sing for the first couple songs, or even when I'm cooking. I love to listen to Frank Sinatra when I'm cooking on the weekend and making dinner for the kids or whatever. And I'll sing or I'll kind of hum along to some of the songs, but after a couple songs, like I'm in my head thinking again, and I might be having the greatest time. I might even be dancing around and stuff, but I'm still up in here.
Is it this reminds me of this, reminds me of this, and gets you on some kind of memory or how's that?
No, it's like I said, it's just always on.
It's a background program that's
Yeah,
always running.
it's like the TV's on and you can't shut it off. It's just always
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
And so no matter what I'm doing, even if it doesn't pull my full attention away, I can still hear it, like in the background, and it's still just going.
So the music is almost white noise, a simultaneous thing that allows your mind space to do sleep processing.
Yeah.
Or it reinforces it or kind of provides it with a platform.
Yeah, for sure. And there's been times, this doesn't happen often, but there's been times, and I love to dance. In fact, when we were in college, Wendy and I went dancing all the time, loved to swing dance and everything else. But to me, it was like no different than working out. I could be dancing, having the greatest time, swing dancing. We'd be throwing and doing all kinds of flips and stuff. And in the middle of doing a flip or something, it turns back on, and I'm like, shut the hell up. Like, I'm trying to enjoy my moment now. Like, why now? And you know, I don't ever talk about that because like who would want to listen to that? But it definitely is a thing that has happened. And it can happen in the most enjoyable of times and even in the worst of times. I found I had a CEO several years ago kind of not really berating me, but kind of letting me have it for some things. And I was kind of feeling it. And then all of a sudden the TV's on and I started paying attention, consume last, started paying attention to the TV rather than him and what he was saying. And I was just like, oh, I really should have probably been paying attention, even though he was tearing into me, you know. I don't know. It's just weird.
Do you
And
ever
then
find you made comments about weightlifting, you made comments about the distraction when the CEO is berating you. You know, it's this multi-processing capacity. We all have those in different ways, but it's hard for me to imagine doing it all the time as you're describing it without introducing some risk.
oh, sure.
Distraction that might make you be prone to filling a prescription wrong or
Mhm.
hurting somebody in the gym. I mean, is that a real valid issue?
Oh yeah, it's definitely happened. I've noticed it doesn't happen at the gym so much, especially since I usually am lifting alone, but it has definitely happened in the pharmacy filling scripts, you know, because pharmacy is a very SI oriented task, right?
Totally.
And so like I I always and I think I'm pretty decent at it, but because it becomes so repetitive, you know, name, date of birth, you know, and you're just going back and forth making sure one, everything's done correctly before you even do the clinical check. And there's been times when it's almost like, you know, I'm sure y'all have all experienced this when you're driving and then you're like, I don't remember the last 20 miles.
Sure.
There's been
Yeah.
times like that when I've
Yeah.
been doing scripts and I'm like, I'll get through a basket of or whatever of scripts, and I'm like, I don't think I processed mentally a single one of those. I'm gonna take that basket back and I will. I'll redo every single
Oh,
one and make
wow.
sure.
So it's
I
like
mean,
an
do you ever do that
OCD thing too, right?
when you're driving, like, oh yeah, I'm driving, I'm on the road, and I didn't have.
Yeah, in fact, I even got into a car accident once because I was processing.
Wow.
And it was on a country road with no other traffic except a dump truck in the middle of the road who was
Oh, no.
turning. I saw him a mile off, so I knew he was there. And then I literally I didn't see anything until I was right on him, and I was like, "Oh crap!" And I hit and I hit him. I head on about 55 miles an hour, totaled the company. Fortunately, it was a company car, not my own.
Well, I'm glad I mean, were you okay? I mean,
Oh yeah, I mean, I had a pretty good concussion for a couple of weeks.
but nothing
Yeah.
like.
So when that happens, so you know, you're midlife here or whatever, and you've learned a lot, you've observed a lot, and you said you have this braking system that you can employ. How you pull that all together as you move forward to keep you from hitting more trucks?
Good question. So as far as the truck thing goes, I try to make sure I'm actively paying attention to the things that are related to driving. When I'm in the pharmacy, I try to actively pay attention to things. The pharmacy's easy to, funny enough, because there's so many things I can pay attention to that aren't my thoughts because so much is going on. I have so much harder time when I'm sitting at a desk trying to get like desk work done.
So again, healthy complementary things going on in parallel. And there's
Yeah.
some balancing act in the brain's weighting system
Yeah.
that allows you to get in a zone where you won't be at risk.
Well, and so I found my max is about 2 hours on anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's about 2 hours. Sometimes it can go longer. But the thing I've also tried to learn to do, funny enough, is I know a lot of people will meditate or try mindfulness to try to get them into a sleep state. I will try to use mindfulness to get me out of a sleep state. Because it's that learning and that practice of pulling your mind to something else. So rather than a lot of people are trying to pull their mind back inward, I'm trying to pull my mind back outward. And so that's what I
reverse monkey mind, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm trying to tell the hi monkey
Yeah.
and let it go. You're trying to say, hey,
Mhm.
come see monkey.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild.
And so like I said, and that was really an eye opener when I got into that accident. And I didn't tell people I was zoning out because why are you gonna? I can't tell my CEO. Yeah, I was just zoning out while I was driving. No big deal.
No
Don't worry about
problem.
it. Yeah. So I've learned to use mindfulness to the TV's always on, but I can use mindfulness to pull my attention back to something else. And so it's that act of constantly pulling back. You know, people are using it to pull back into their brains. I'm using it to just get those reps into pulling out and refocusing somewhere else.
So there's
Yeah.
there's an art and a practice that's evolving for you
For
to
me, yeah.
balance those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and I forget to do it just like any, you know, I'm not great at it, but or even just like in conversation, just like with you guys. There's times, like I said, I do the physical things, I play with things, I fiddle, whatever, just to keep my brain kind of focused on something else so I can listen. But I've also had to do that in conversations with people where, like, I'm at work and I'm not sitting down and it's an important conversation standing up. And I'm like, I can tell my brain, I can recognize that my brain's going and then pull it back. And that's
that art and practice I was referring to. It's just reps, experiences, putting mental cues with your SI, I imagine. And then it gives you something to rally around.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like, and I've done this with like Demon NF as well. So those cues, right, that you're talking about. So anytime my NF starts to spiral in the gutter or in the toilet, that's my red flag. Like, hey, you're doing something that's not helpful. Like pull out now. But so I do the same things. And again, I know it's probably consume last, but hey, you're not paying attention. Pull back, pay attention. Like this is important. I've had to do it with my kids. I've had to do it with my wife, with everybody, because it just
TV shows.
Yeah, TV
What's
shows.
that?
I'll be watching something I like
Hmm.
and realize I don't remember what happened in the last 10 minutes because I was sleep processing and I just now realized that's what was happening.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I've done the same. I've had to like rewind and be like, okay, where was I?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, everybody does that to an extent, but you think
Sure.
it's pretty bad.
Well, it's also consume last
Consume
isn't
last.
helping, I don't think.
Doesn't
either.
help at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know probably half of what I'm spewing out is probably from consume last mixed with sleep first.
Right.
Because I imagine I would love to have the same conversation with like a sleep consume double masculine ST and just see like what are we doing different and what are we doing the same? Like what's the experience? And then again, understanding that like even though we both have masculine SI, our SIs are going to be experiencing different things and processing differently.
Oh, very illuminating. Good insights there, Nate. I'm glad we just let you go. You're the expert in this topic.
Too much.
Sleep savior, man. You're just going and giving us good stuff.
Well, that's
I
the
hope
sleep
so.
last play too. Like sometimes, you know, they get on something, they can keep going and going.
Yeah.
It's a little that animal stacking.
Yeah. No, it's true. I'm the hidden extrovert, I guess.
So I want to ask you
technically that animal
Laura.
stacking is an extrovert because it's got an introverted animal last. So.
Right.
I want to ask you and Laura both the same question I asked Gracie about where you at on a scale of 1 to 10. You go first, Laura, and where you think you should be and where you are.
Probably a 5. I mean, but the thing is, it's weird because you would have asked me this question before OPS. I would have said, "Oh, I'm very self-aware." I probably would have given myself like a 9 or a 10, and now I've realized, you know, I'm not as self-aware as I thought I was. You know, especially realizing that I'm demon sleep. So even though I would give myself a lower number, I'm probably actually better off now than I was pre-OPS. Because I'm
fair. So 5. So like say you wanted to establish in a year, I want to be what number would you give you and how are you going to get there?
Oh, probably, I mean, I'll be realistic and say 7.
Okay. Fair.
Because I mean, I don't think anybody's a 10 because for me a 10 means there's no room for improvement at all. You're absolutely perfect and nobody's absolutely perfect. So.
Okay. So 7 is your target. So what things do you think you maybe can consume cheat or originally think of, or whatever that might move you from 5 to 7?
I think it's the things I said before, giving myself time each day where I don't have external distractions, and it's just me. I don't have obligations I have to worry about. And I think the physical wellness component is important, like being well rested and exercising. And sometimes when I'm exercising too, that I will sleep process while I'm exercising.
Mm-hmm.
And like instead of thinking, oh, these are just mundane chores I got to do, think of it as like, this will give me a chance to practice some sleep processing.
Okay. So Nate, what's your number?
Repeat the question one more time. I want to make sure I understand it.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's call it your talent. Where are you in terms of sleep processing?
My talent in terms of sleep processing.
Yeah, like say 10's, that's the premier spot. Where are you in that scale?
Like knowing yourself is how you previously.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about knowing myself. I would say a solid. I would probably say 8. Knowing that, I don't think I'll ever be a 10, but I also know that like the thing I was thinking about when you asked Gracie this was like I'm also not the person I was 10, 20 years ago. Like I'm a different person now, and so being self-aware is like an ongoing process of understanding where you are, who you are, what you're doing. If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I was the type of person I am now, doing the types of things I am now, and understanding and thinking about things, especially when it comes to like religion and different things that I am now, I would have said, hell no. Like, no, I can't change. I can't change. And yet here I am, totally changed, very different. So I would say an 8, understanding that that's just right now, and that I'm going to be different in a year from now, and 10 years from now. And so I'm going to have to, that's constantly going to be updating. So hopefully it'll stay at an 8. That's my goal.
So you're selling in a sweet spot.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Okay.
that's real good perspective. So Laura and whoever else turn to
All right. Well,
see what you can help me consume cheat.
Okay. Well, I think I'm just going to ask you the question you just asked us. Where do you see yourself on a scale of 1 to 10?
An SI
For your own sleep processing and your own self-awareness.
Well, knowing what I know now after attacking it pretty hard, I know how many areas I have to work on. I'm going to say I'm about a 3.5. I think I was probably about a 1 or 1.5 last year this time. Which is really interesting because when I went in not knowing the system and not knowing what OPS was and not understanding animals, obviously, I actually thought I might be blast sleep. I thought I might be a sleep savior, but I've learned, consumed, cheated. I've been humbled, and I've discerned and attacked it, and figured out, just no. I had no conceptualization of what sleep processing was, and I still really don't have one, I think, comparatively. So we'll go 3.5.
Okay. Yeah.
My goal is like
interesting.
6 or 7.
Like the higher the sleep, the higher people are rating themselves. It's kind of interesting.
Maybe, but Laura, you forget I'm an
logical
IP. I'm probably self-deluded too.
Yeah, well, that was what I was gonna say. Is like,
okay, we'll bump you down to 7.
Sleep savior, but consume demon. I know who I am internally at a 6, but if you were to ask me who am I to the tribe, but how does the tribe see me, I'd say I have no idea, and I wish they would tell me, but they're weirded out by the question.
Yeah.
So
anybody watching, reach out to Gracie and give her some feedback. But make sure it's artfully and
Tactfully
gracefully
done.
given.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
Okay.
You really
So-
want it, right, Gracie?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and this is the thing that people, I think, refuse to give double feminine. So I don't know. It's probably different for other people, but I'm ST. I'd much rather know what the data is so I can do something with it than you have me guessing and effing all over. I'd much rather you just tell me. Then I can at least maybe have a shot at doing something about it.
Right. Yeah. If you measure it, then you have a chance to get better, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Have some kind of measuring stick.
So,
Yeah.
so Ryan, so I mean, so even after over the last year or so, you still improved your sleep processing. So was it primarily OPS and discovering your type that improved that, or were there other things too that were involved?
I think listening to other people talk about it and getting some texture and a landscape of what it is and what it's not. And then having an ST procedure, so to speak, to know how to even get started on it. For me, it's been tons of meditation, prayer, thoughtfulness, journaling, listing it out, confronting it, going in the woods, breathing exercises, all those things, exercising, all the things you guys mentioned, plus more. And the thing that helped me the most was, and again, I'm weird, and everybody knows that. That's fine, but I think in pictures, even though I'm MF,
Mhm.
and I see things like I've worked in the space program, so it's like there's this dashboard of a bunch of parameters in front of me, and I have something called SIFI nuggets. And I looked over my life, and I've told folks there's a large number of them that I've identified. And this was through 5 or 6 months of a very intense, consistent SI process of documenting, writing, and confronting them. And I kind of outsorted myself, and I found out how weak my FI was, because my way of doing things is always to, in the space program, one of the things that I really fit in well with that I love complexity, and I love lots of data all collocated on one sheet of paper. And quite frankly, that was absolutely required there. You couldn't flip back to this page and that. You had to have a diagram with everything right there for everybody to stay attended to, deal with the complexity all at once.
Yeah.
So what I did was,
that kind of makes me think of something here, like summarizing everything that people said in this video into one, like a diagram that fits on one page, and then sharing
That'd
it
be
with
fun.
group.
that would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice. It maybe it'll happen. Who knows? So I did that, and I came up with this large number. I'll just say it: 42 different instances that I identified were not fully processed from my life. And to me, sleep processing is
42.
what I embrace
So
about it.
you actually counted them.
Yeah, there's a list, and
Wow.
there's 36 that haven't been dispositioned as of now.
See,
The good news is six of them are done.
Never counted that. I mean,
Yeah, because you're not weird like me, Laura. But it's my method, and I needed everything.
okay. Yeah.
I needed to get the way I work is, if I have everything that's germane, that's pertinent to the task, all on one sheet of paper, now I know how to TeSi a plan, because it's all right there. And then my mind just starts attacking it and collating it and stratifying it and streamlining it and project planning it. And then now I've got a plan. Where what I'll share with folks is where I went wrong is that's always worked for me until now. And I got completely blown away. Because all that undealt with shit was staring at me at once. And I'm like, oh, and I told somebody, and I'm like, I outsmarted myself. And so then what I did was I went, and that's the hard work. Then I set it to the side, and I decided I'm going to dose it. And I brought in about 4 at a time, is what I decided. And prioritize them and bring in 4, maybe like an easy one, a hard one, 2 medium ones, And I came up with what I call my dose strategy for sleep processing. It sounds ridiculous, but when
Oh,
you
it sounds.
live more than 50 years and you've sleep last double masculine, there's a lot of shit that's never been dealt with. So that has been really good for me. Once I got past that moment where I didn't lose it, but it was a very uncomfortable moment of seeing all that there. And there was some things that were really weighty and fresh at the same time. And so once I got through that, and you can kind of tell from my posture right now that I'm not completely done with that moment, and the dosing started coming out, I'm making some really good progress. Because to me, I explained this to Danny Torres because I was on his little project he's doing. To me, sleep processing, my crazy model is there's this supercontinent, the Pangea, right? And so that represents your identity, your narrative, and everything either cohesively fitting together for you to understand yourself, know who you are, and to understand all these SIFI moments in your life as cohesively and cleanly as possible. So these 42, now 36 things are like, I opened it up, I looked at it, and I started dealing with them. And now I'm in the process of stitching that Pangea, that supercontinent back together a little bit at a time, and then opening it up again, and then putting it back together again. And so I have no idea what it's like to be Nate other than the great explanations that he provided for us, or anybody else who's sleep first. And I've worked with lots of people that I know are mopes now that I know what a mope is. And I can see them now doing something like that. I think it's a matter of picking your metaphor, picking your process, and then dosing out, in my case, these things that need to be dealt with. So this graphical explanation I explained a while ago, which I know is really weird, like, to me, I looked at them, I'm like, okay, this one has a severity of 9, and I've processed it 2 out of 10. This one has a severity of 5, but I've processed it 8 out of 10. You know, so let me go ahead and dose myself some, maybe a hard one, like I said, an easy one, and maybe 2 middle ones at a time at any given period of a few weeks. And let me try to disposition those things. And those are ingredients in my identity, my self-narrative, and my conceptualization of who I am, because I'm an Enneagram 3, I'm an EJ, spending all this time outside of myself, and I'm FI demon. Well, those are the problem issues which allowed all this unresolved work over all these years to happen. Like, for instance, there's a few I could share that are pretty safe. About 2 weeks before my senior year in high school, unexpectedly out of nowhere, I moved from a small town where I was going to have about 53 senior classmates and go into senior year. And I was going to be back on the football team because I had missed some time, and I was really excited. We went to quarterfinals in the state that year. It was a really good team. I was very excited. I found out we were moving. So I moved from a small town to a larger town with a humongous high school and knew nobody my first day of senior year. Well, I've processed that over the years, but I thought I had it fully processed until the other day, about 3 days ago, somebody, somebody sent, I'm going to catch myself. Somebody sent out a picture of a bunch of pictures from senior year that I missed. And wow, it hit me.
Wow.
So, you know, that doesn't necessarily completely have to do with self-narrative or identity, but it kind of does.
Totally does.
And yeah, because it's part of your formation and how you accept yourself and what happened to you and all those good things, right? And I saw those pictures of my classmates at a lake house and partying. I'm like, holy shit. I never realized I missed that until now. That's just 3 days ago.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, do you ever like real, like, I don't know, like have regrets or something, or maybe you were TEing too much and you didn't realize how FI important it was to you deep down, and then much later, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, that I didn't listen to my FI and I should have. I mean,
Well, I didn't have enough FI to even listen to, is what I'm discovering back then.
like you didn't
And
have
so
it,
yeah, I double and
or
triple
you didn't
and
know how
quadruple.
to tap into it. I mean, because I'm thinking you had it, but you didn't know how to tap into it, maybe.
Well, right.
Very
The
deep
TE
down.
was smothering the hell out of it. And so my modus operandi was always to pivot to some TE project and do the next thing. And just I've done that my entire life until the last 10 years, and specifically the last year or two. And so I smothered it with other things, other aspirations, you know, Enneagram 3, achieve, perform, do, go. There's plenty of stuff out there to help other people with and to do. So that's just a glimpse into what 42 different things over 50 plus years that are either partially unresolved or substantially unresolved. And then a few days ago, I shared a story with the tribe about my father and his death and the most eventful day of my life. And my father was a amazing person, and he was a mailman, and he died on the day my most significant. If my dad hadn't died that day, it still would have been the most memorable day of my life. So add that to it, right? And I processed that a lot, but then I found out that it's still not fully processed. Well, what's fully processed? Heck, I don't know. I'm sleep last, but
I guess that was a kind of another question I have is like, you could always process more. And I mean, you could always just reprocess the same thing again, but then you're not coming into any new conclusions. So then is that fully processed because you can't come into anything new, or is it fully processed, or do you consider it fully processed when you don't feel like you need to process it anymore?
and those are the exact questions I'm asking myself. It's just my analytical mind getting too carried away. Am I not dosing this properly? Am I grading myself too hard?
I have my own things too, my own baggage where it's like I'm just reprocessing the same thing, and I know I'm not going to get any farther with it. I've kind of gone as far as I can go, but then there's other things where it's like, okay, yeah, I didn't process that all the way. There's more to be discovered. So
yeah, and if you're Nate, you've done this all the time on an ongoing process, so you don't get like this huge backlog like me. 50 plus years of a backlog that then you stupid enough to try to, oh, I've done this before. I'll just put it all on one sheet of paper, and then you find out, no, that's not what you do. It's no one can do that. And I found out I certainly couldn't do that. And so now I have a more successful plan. And I've given you guys 2 examples. There's out of the 42. You know, there's some more severe ones than that I'm dealing with that, you know, because it's masculine SI and masculine FI, if something has happened that was important to me because it's masculine FI, right? It's extremely vividly recallable.
mm-hmm.
I mean, like to the gnat's hair of detail.
Wow.
In fact, I was at this retirement party today for a friend of mine. He's 66. He just retired, and I met up with a group of people that I hadn't seen in a long time, and some people that I'd never met before. But it turns out we worked on some similar projects, and I just got into oh, yeah, remember this? And they were all looking at me. And this one girl that I worked with, I hadn't worked with her last time was 15 years ago. She looked at me. She said, "How the hell are you remembering that? That's right, but how the hell are you remember that?" And it's like, because it's in my FI box, it's masculine FI, and because my masculine SI and that together, when they attach, it's both good and horrible, because if it's something that you don't want to relive, you can relive it in 5D and remember every single detail of it. So I
kind of have the same.
Do you?
Same thing, similar, yeah. Interesting.
So it's kind of a gift, but it's also kind of a curse, right? Just like anything, a two-edged sword. So
Just a sidetrack. I kind of wanted to ask Gracie because her SI is feminine. So you have feminine SI, but you also have masculine FI. So how does that work for you? Like, do you relate?
Yeah. I've been thinking about that. So I've learned to appreciate the feminine nature because I mean it can be really annoying, but yeah, I don't remember the details of bad things, which again can be a good thing, but also a bad thing if somebody's trying to change what happened. Because I don't seem confident, but I seem confident about my intuitive conclusion in an anxious state. So it just doesn't go well for me. But yeah, no, it's weird. So I'll know something's important to me. But the details of it don't necessarily matter.
It's more I find like
Is it more the
Wendy's got
feelings
double
themselves?
feminine. Wendy's got double feminine SF sleep, and she
Mhm.
says the same thing. It's like I can't remember any of the details, but I definitely remember like the impressions I felt and then the conclusions I drew. Like to
Okay.
her, that's the most important thing,
Mhm.
not necessarily the details of the little details of everything that happened.
And with me, I kind of feel like it's both.
Yeah.
It's all the above. I remember it vividly, and I also thematically categorize it with my innie, I guess, and I just ponder it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's my experience. You know, it's 3.5, so
I
I'm
do
doing
have
good.
I do have a question for you though, Brian. When
Yeah.
you're processing, is it, I mean, I know processing is a time of reflection, but do you also allow yourself to just feel too? Like, do you let yourself just feel in the moment or feel through the day, or do you have to set that aside and give that time to be able to do that and feel for yourself about all this stuff?
Well,
Cry
last year at the end of September, Gracie's husband and I were having a chat on Discord, voice chat, and he was exploring that with me and counseling me and giving me advice. And his advice to me was just let it wash over you and through you.
Yeah.
Those were his exact words. And so, see, I was having a very SIFI moment, and I can recall with vividness
hmm
him giving me that input. And my answer to him was something to the effect of, I try.
Yeah.
But the access to, you know, it's my demon. The
No,
sleep
dude.
is and the FI is. So
FE last right here.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
with you.
exactly. So the body's participation kind of comes and goes unnuanced and without sophistication.
Mhm.
It's not something that I've got the capacity to selectively and sophisticatedly engage and say, okay, body, feels, come on. It's like a while ago, you saw my moment. It just comes when it
Mhm.
decides it wants to, and I don't
Yeah.
have fluid capacity as a demon to control it. And so that's
Have you
kind of
ever
where
tried to
it's
not control it, especially in a situation where you're alone?
well, my spiritual director I made reference to, she's a gift from God for sure. She's phenomenal. She's a former counselor and she's a spiritual director. And I think, like I said, she's SIFI, sleep first, or FISC, I'm not sure which one, but she has helped me to kind of make some progress in what you're asking about.
Yeah.
And
So is
Go
it
ahead.
just kind of like having like a cry routine, or maybe not literally a
You-
cry
you-
routine, but you know, something?
I can't choose when I want to cry. I used to, I mean,
Right,
I've cried
okay.
when I was a kid, like when I told people before, it's like my sports team lost when I was a kid or didn't get my way. Yeah, sure, I cried.
Yeah.
When my father passed away, this
Yeah.
is one reason why it never got resolved. I was at Mission Control. I came home. I was supposed to go back that evening. I woke up, drove to Louisiana, figured everything out for the family, got in TE mode, buried my father, and then came back and finished the mission. Right? It was a respectful process, but we did it quickly because I TE'd the hell out of it. We did it right. because I had other duties and this mission was like 11
Right.
days long.
Yeah.
So I was
And
able to
it's
get
like
back.
when you're,
So
when
I,
you're doing all that action, like how do you
yes, TE distraction.
emotionally process, you know,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
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 It's exactly right. And so what happened is that I was kind of, and this is what I told Eric. And at the time with Eric, it was my dog, and the dog was sick, and we almost had to put it down 3 times. She's doing great now, thank God. But I was upset with myself because I was frustrated, and I was probably sensed as being angered in the moment. But I had no, I wasn't like, oh, my puppy, my precious puppy is. I was mad in the moment because I could not access on command the feelings that I knew I was supposed to have inside. It's kind of like I
Yeah.
explained once before, it's like going to the movies once. Everybody around me crying, I'm looking at them, and my mind says, "Yep, I should be crying too." But how do you do that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So letting it come onto you on command might be easy for some people. For me, it's like I don't have the control valves to determine when it's happening.
Yeah. And
I
I
think
wasn't
it's a
necessarily.
feeler thing.
And I don't
It's
have a
another
whole lot
thing.
of control
Yeah.
either, like if there's strong emotions, but then I worry about it's going to come at an inappropriate time. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to cry, but I can't do it right now because I'm at work and I'm serving customers and I got to put on the happy face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Well, it's like anything though, you know, and that's why they call them your saviors. In my case, what do I do? Well, I don't understand how to do FI anyway. GE's right there. Hey, bro, let's roll. And so I did that thousands of times.
Yeah. And I wasn't referring necessarily to crying per se, but just letting the emotions flow. I know and now
Well,
we're
that
getting
line
to
is just kind of an example. It could be other.
right. No, for
Yeah,
sure, for
yeah.
sure. I know as a FE last, or feeler last, especially being a feminine feeler last, like it's the same thing. When I'm processing emotions, half the time I need someone else to do it with because I'm freaking FE. So I don't even know what it's like for you FIs other than seeing my wife who's FI, and it's like, leave me alone. I got to go be by myself, right?
Mm.
But the other thing I found is like sleep processing. Even though I'm ST processing, it's funny how I ST process my emotions, like in the car or whatever, or like I said, I'd be in the middle of rowing and all of a sudden, uh, I'll start crying because I make these connections and it feels real strong, within me and it induces those things. And I don't know what it's like for you guys because then I'm going to ST work. I was like, okay, what's going on here? Why am I feeling this emotion? What's going on? Rather than just letting the stupid thing be, and it's like once I finally
All of
started
it,
just
yeah.
letting the stupid thing be,
Mhm.
it happens way more often, and
Yes.
the intensity has gone way down too.
Oh, okay.
Well, I will tell you this, success stories. Um, Walking in the woods, doing a lot of walking. Since COVID started, I probably walk an average of 4 miles a day. So some days it's 10, some days it's 0 because of rain, but 4 miles a day is the average. And while I'm on those walks, I've discovered that's my best time in the woods with my body moving. MF, right? So
Hmm.
I've got this audio story going in my head, and I got kinesthetic motion going, and it tends to
Hmm.
be a really great place. So I've made my best progress moments then. And I have had what you said. Let's call it the Eric principle. Just let it wash over you, right? I've had some success
I
with
gotta
that.
write that one down for the.
Yeah, but he gets credit for it because he was at the right place at the right time to make an input to me that I've had some success with as a result. So thanks to him for that. Um, I've I've learned how I've done a lot of internal interoception studies and some work over the last few years, in fact, and it's starting to really become accessible to me where I can have some level of control. I can like think of something SI and then the FI emotions will come to me when I'm in the woods. But when I'm outside of the woods, the control valves are not there yet. That's why I'm a 3.5. I don't know how to intentionally engage something emotionally and experience it the way normal people do.
Yeah, I've been working on that myself. I know it's different because I'm not SF sleep, but engaging those things that would put me into those emotional states, like certain songs, certain hymns.
Mhm.
You know, funny enough, certain parts of different movies that just touched me in
Mhm.
different ways. I'll watch the clips on YouTube and just let it go. Wendy caught me the other day. I was watching Lord of the Rings, and there's a
Mm.
part in Return of the King that gets me every single time. And she just looked at me and she's like, "We good?" I was like, "Yeah, we good." She's like, "Okay, cool."
Is it
And
you bowed to no one?
no, no,
Okay.
Part is
it's
it?
the writers. It's the Rohirrim when they come and you hear the horn.
Oh,
Just as they're coming up the crest of the hill, just before they go down, and Theoden gives a speech. Yeah, yeah,
It's
I
a
just
good,
bought
yeah.
that commemorative edition of that. I was telling Daniel, it's the first book I ever read in my life was The Hobbit, and so
mhm.
I'm a Tolkien fan as well.
Yeah. I love Tolkien,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, so it's this process, but I will tell you this too, that I'm starting to have access to have some, what as I call it, control valves. I'm a mechanical engineer, I'm a nerd. I have to have some kind of metaphor that makes sense to me, my
sure.
language. But um, but now I've kind of got a little bit of the capacity's built. So then now the problem is too much real fast, and that's tidal wave sensitivity.
Mhm.
So it's a balancing act of trying to invite it in, but also saying, all right, I got to be careful because now I can go somewhere that I never could before, and I do not know how to do that.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like, for right or wrong, some of my explanations of SIFI, double masculine sleep paralysis.
Yeah, I
I
understand. Go ahead.
have a story. I don't know if it's useful, but I think it was a turning point for me. I was in church the other day, and a friendship that is kind of not existing anymore because of COVID times. Um, it wasn't even a real thing, but of course, my double masculine NF was like, "Oh, this is why this thing is like." They were sitting somewhere else, and like, "Oh, it's over, it's done, we're never gonna be friends again," and there's all this other stuff going on in my life, and I was sitting there trying not to cry, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this doesn't happen, I'm ST, it can't, this is not it's not allowed. And at some point I just realized, okay, this is going to happen whether I like it or not. And so I texted Eric and said, I need the keys to the car so I can go cry in the car, redo my makeup, and come back. And so he gave me the keys, and I went to the car and I cried for like 3 minutes straight. And then I took like the next 15 minutes, like calming back down. And then I redid my makeup and I went back inside. And I did this because my counselor has told me if you don't deal with the emotion when it's happening, you will have to, but you're not avoiding anything. You will have to deal with it eventually. It gets stuck.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well then I don't, and I think I've gotten to where I believe that. But so the craziest thing happened, I don't know, crazy to a demon intuitor. uh that night at church, because we have 2 services, um, they were sitting back where they used to, near us. And then afterwards, said person turned around and asked, hey, I was hoping to get to go to lunch with you sometime. If I had not gone to the car and cried beforehand, that would not have gone well. I probably would have started sobbing, or I would have looked really cold and shut off and everything. But because I had already processed those emotions about that person, I felt much more able to be open to that possibility. And I felt pretty calm the whole time. So I guess I'm trying to give you that as proof that dealing with these emotions is worthwhile and it will improve things.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
to just not to push it away when it happens. And I'm the same way, because I am demon feeling, and being masculine at 5, it's just, it's scary to me.
Well,
You know.
it's not it's not well, okay, pushing it away versus inviting it in, letting it wash over you, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
in my particular case, in what you
Mm-hmm.
did was really successful, very advisable. Because you're right, the body keeps the score. Like people that like have poor memories and they kind of like things have passed by, it's lodged in the body and it's going to stay with you much longer
Mm-hmm.
than you ever could realize, because your body's going to hold into that. So you got to release it. You got to find a way, but there's a sophistication. There's a methodology. There's an awareness. All these different things. This is why I call it the art and practice of sleep processing. That Nate is the leader in the clubhouse here. He's got more familiarity with it. So he's got that keep it out or invited in capacity.
Mm-hmm.
That I think the ones of us who have demon sleep are kind of looking to try to develop, because you have to invite it in or push it out with art and practice that's going to allow you to disposition it and know how to manage it like you did when you went in the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you knew that you had to push it away in the moment by going away,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then letting it come in, versus somebody that doesn't have those skill sets might just take the narrative might be in your head. Okay, I got to let it wash over me, and then try to do it without going to the car and it not going so well. See what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. I guess I'm TE enough that I feel like I'd be afraid of the judgment, so I naturally feel like I had to run away. But it's like it's part of me standing up for myself more. You know, Eric gets mad at me that I don't let people understand how much I'm hurt by them sometimes. He's like, if they were to see you and know how upset you really are, I feel like they would feel differently. And so this was one of those times where I was like, you know what? Even if they figure out that I'm late, you know, it's just I've got it. And if that makes them upset, then it makes them upset. But yeah, it's sleep processing is you know, all these things, they're all necessary. They have to be done, but that doesn't mean that they're fun for the people who have them as saviors, and you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have no conceptualization of what it would like to be a Phi savior from an emotional perspective. Cognitive values wise, I get it. Got that really high, but bodily,
The only
it's
Yeah.
other the only other thing I'd add too, though, Brian, is it doesn't have to be negative. It can be also all the positive things too. And that's I think we sometimes, especially when we're, you know, here's a bunch of STs like NF processing right now, right? And so we like to focus on the negative too much, but it's like, no, there's so many positive. Like I'm crying in the museum, in the New York Museum of Natural History, looking at a bunch of rocks, right? And like like, and if anyone wanted to bring it up, I'd just be like, yeah, great, who cares? You know, and maybe that's just my masculine TI, but um you know, it's like it's you got to deal with the negative stuff, but I think it's also beneficial and helpful to let the positive things come in and wash over you just as much, because if we only deal with the negative, then that's the only flavor we're ever going to know, and the only flavor we're ever going to SI go back to, and you got to
so.
do both.
So what I'm gonna do, based upon Mr. Sleep Savior's counsel here, is all those 42 things I made reference to were they're not necessarily negative, but they were problematic.
Hmm.
They were not positive recollections. Maybe I have 42 good ones that can,
I bet you
you know,
do.
embrace gratefulness and appreciation and gratitude, and that might be a really good asset in the process.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what I was saying earlier is like I will and maybe this is just me being feminine FE, but I will go to the things that will make me move emotionally. I want to be moved emotionally. My TI doesn't want to be moved, right? And so it resists, but that's why I will go seek out those things, even in a solitary setting, just so I can be moved by the positive, because there's too much negativity and too much to process there. Like I said, if that's all I've seen this with patients especially, when all you're processing and all you're thinking about is the negative, that's all that's ever going to manifest.
And that's really good counsel, and I agree completely. And I think I'm in a situation now versus 5 years ago where my internal circuitry, so to speak, will be sufficient enough to actually take that counsel. Right. Whereas before it wasn't really even, my body didn't register it, whether good or bad.
Sure.
It was not controllable. It's like every once in a while something would pop up out of nowhere, and I'm like, "Oh, where'd that come from?" Let me get back to TE mode here, and now I'm letting it come through me. I'm seeking it, and my body is ready. I told somebody once, the expression, "When the student is ready, the teacher will appear." I think that's a Buddhist construct. That when the body is ready, the feelings will appear.
Yeah.
And I think sadly, now only at this stage of life is my body somewhat ready for the feelings to appear. And so it's a process. Rome's not built in a day, but I'm on the right pathway with it. So
yeah, but at least you're on the path and you haven't shut it out completely. And the other thing I'm just I'm thinking in Spanish again, realizing is all three are masculine FI, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, which means you guys don't want to be moved emotionally. Like that's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Well, if we want to, I mean, like I want to be
willing
positively.
Right, sure.
But I also want it to be on my own terms. Like I want to choose.
Sure.
Like sometimes I'll seek out music, for example, that I know is going to move me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's on my own terms. I'm seeking it out,
Yeah.
If it shuffles and I'm not in that mood, I'm going to skip it, or I'll turn off the music.
Right. My point is, because it's your identity function, it doesn't want to be shifted around a whole lot, right? It wants to.
No.
It's just I'm flipping the math around with my own TI, which when all y'all TEs start coming around and throwing out your TE, I'm just like nope. Like don't give it to me. I'm good, right? And so I see that too, like with the FIs, like they're just my daughter is lead FI, and she's like, no, I don't know. Get your FE out of here. Like stop it, And so, like, just something to keep in mind. Like, I try to look at those little hacks as like, oh yeah, if I can at least understand what's going on, it makes my TI a little bit more easier to receive my wife's TE when she's throwing it out.
But I kind of wonder, like with like feminine FI savior, for example, if they're maybe a less, like even if it's a demon. So let's compare demon feminine FI versus demon and masculine FI. Demon feminine FI maybe is a little less afraid of losing control of emotions, whereas I don't know, demon MFI is fears it a little more.
I can only speak to my wife, who's the feminine savior FI, being an ENFP, and like the fear of being moved around emotionally there's not really a fear there. Being able to play around with the emotions and work through them, no big deal. Especially being lead NE, she's just like, yeah, let's go have fun with this, see where it goes.
Yeah, Eric is similar. He's lead feminine FI, and I realized that was weird to me, like alien. I'm like, what is this thing you're doing? Which now I realize, it's emoting and being comfortable in emoting. He's not afraid of his emotions. Now I can watch him and I can see him go through all the phases of, this makes me emotional. He cries a little bit. We're watching Ted Lasso, and then he processes it, and then he's done, and he's back to whatever. Like it's not something to fear. He lets it. He does the air thing. Lets it wash over him, and he's not afraid of the wave. You know,
Right.
He's
And
comfortable
I
with
think
it.
for me,
he welcomes it.
Welcomes it.
kind of like I'm afraid of like being pulled in and not being able to get back out again. Like,
Right.
it's kind of more of a
Right, because
quality.
it's
Even Shannon said that too about demons. Like they feel like they're forever. Like I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Like,
quicksand.
I'm gonna be miserable forever. You know, at the time you're feeling miserable, and you know that that's not true. But
I feel the same way with TI. Like if I feel like the TI reasoning stack on whatever SI I'm processing is set, and then Wendy comes in or whoever TE comes in and says, "Oh, Jenga block," and the whole thing's going to come tumbling down, I don't want to deal with that. That's too much TI work. I've already put
But
too
she'll
much
help
in.
you rebuild it.
Yeah, but my TI doesn't want help rebuilding.
Yeah, figure that out.
Yeah, it's the Jenga thing. Well, I've
I
seen
know,
that
man.
a lot of times with my TI friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
One
so
thing,
true.
it's like an SI storyteller that has to start from the beginning and go all the way
Yeah.
through. If you stop them at step 3, they got to go back to 1 and start it over again. That's how the TI Jenga block process is. If you corrupt it, the whole stream is corroded.
yeah.
It seems.
But I think that's the whole SI sleep process too, right? It goes through its thing and it beginning to end, and if you stop it midway, I know if I stop it midway, I get really frustrated because for whatever reason, because it's just like, no, it's not finished. I gotta get through this. I don't have the FI processing that I have to do with it. I just have to TI it, right? Make it make sense to me, and then I'm good. So I can only imagine what it must be like to try to emotionally process that. I don't even know what that means, but anyway, just I going again back to my point is just like to the sleep laster, like let it process, let it roll, let that movie go.
It's like goes back to one of my models, awareness, then a blueprint, that's a roadmap, and then create and commit to it. That's where the change happens.
Yeah.
So the philosophy and the mindset and the attitude and the awareness are great, but alone they can't do anything for you. So when somebody says, "Oh, just let it wash over you," you get like great appreciation for that as an awareness point.
Right.
Now I have to figure out a roadmap to actually do that, commit to it, and create the capacity to do that. And that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the art and the practice have to come together to allow you to develop that capacity to do what the wisdom somebody's putting in your head is saying is valid. But so that's why it's a road, it's a pathway. That's that blueprint part, ABC. You've got to consume, cheat, get to awareness, and then construct the blueprint and then execute it, stick to it. Then you can get the nuance capacities. And like I'm going through that very inelegantly.
Yeah.
But I think several years from now, there's going to be a trail of that process proving itself. And I'm on that process. And that's like with OPS, it's, to me, it's a growth and development model more than it is a personality.
No, I totally 100% agree.
Right. And so, but for growth and development, you have to follow, knowing it and getting expertise at shaving people and knowing your parts and all that stuff. That's the awareness. Well, what are you going to do with that? Because unless you hit the road and actually come up with an action plan and commit and create and do the hard work and stick it out. In my case, that's what FI and sleep processing. With other people, it'd be with other parts of their 512. Unless you do that, you're just stuck in an awareness loop. And it's fun and it's engaging and it'll go forever. Right? Yeah. So I think for all of us, that's the validity of having these kinds of conversations that we can encourage you to do that.
For sure.
Yeah.
My only final advice on that is, and this is probably just because I'm ST sleep and NF play, but don't try to ST the NF too hard. Because
it's not how that works.
It fails me so much.
Yeah, and that's just sit with it and meditate, think about the purpose and the meaning of life, and kind of get hippie woo woo and all that kind of stuff, right? those aren't ST processes. Those are
What?
let it come to you processes. And so, like my case, I'll speak for myself and other people. It's like you gotta get the ST out of the equation as much as you're capable of it, so that that process can actually mature.
No, I understand what you're saying. I think like for me, it's definitely I have to go play. I have to go ping off people. I have to go find value and meaning. I think for like Wendy, she has to go consume value and meaning, right? I think for you too, because you're consume NF, you got to go actually. I don't think it's a matter of sleep processing per se in its entirety. I think it's also a matter of going out and consuming the NF.
Yeah, it's both. But yeah, Nathan, I liked what you said about you're not just like that. Sleep processing isn't just the negative things. I think that's what we think of because we figure that's where the problems are, right? But yeah, if I've had a really good day, and I'm in the car on the way home, it's not that I'm not sleep processing. I still am.
Right.
But I'm processing the good things and being like,
Yep.
man, that was so great. Wow, my friend is so nice that they made that cake for me, and stuff like that. Like it's all of it. It's not just okay, let me find the wrong things, and that's what sleep is. It's an understanding of all of it.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah, it's like I have a statement, and again, it's the awareness is great, but you got to do the practice, right? So having a statement, crowd in the good stuff. Well, I'm not doing that with my sleep processing, and that's what I've discovered more than anything else in this conversation.
Yeah.
I have this philosophy on what is being and feeling grateful, because it's you have to practice and engage giving thanks and being appreciative, and those all compile together to make you feel grateful, right? And in order to do that, you have to do what you guys are suggesting here. You have to not just look at the problematic parts to solve the problem. Of course, I'm an engineer. That's what I do. I'm going to look for the problems, but I know through this conversation and through common sense that I need to look at the other part of it as well. But knowing that is great. Now I've got to actually do it.
Do it, right, for sure.
And that's part of double deciding too, right? Is yes, this person did this bad thing, but also they've done this nice thing for me one time. It's like everyone contains multitudes, is whoever says that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If there's somebody's been like that, 80% of things are great to you and 20% bad. Well, let's look at it on balance instead of just isolating the 20%. Right? I think that's kind of what you're saying. Look at the holistic part and give a chance to look at what needs to be dealt with that's negative, but also equally look at what's right to hone in on and appreciate.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying double decide on yourself as well. Like you have to learn it on both sides, not just for other people, but for yourself.
That's a hard one.
Okay, that's good.
That's a hard one for us deciders.
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with it. I can't imagine how y'all are doing.
I think the hardest thing being the double masculine ST sleep, and I've told this to many people, is that no one's going to be harder on me than me, period. Like end of discussion.
Not even remotely close.
Not even going to come close. The only thing you could do to me,
I think any double
reinforce what I already believe.
Because I have that two double masculine SF sleep.
Oh God, yes. I mean, you can't even come remotely close as hard as I am on myself. You can hurt me, but you can't come remotely close as being critical of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Laura, you want to take us home?
Yeah. Okay. I just had one final question for you, and that is, I guess regarding your sleep fourth, what is the most important blaster lesson you would give to somebody who's also sleep fourth? Particularly SI sleep fourth.
I think we just hit on it. It's like, I'd say Rome's not built in a day. If you've been alive for 50 plus years and you sleep last and you don't know what it is, don't try to solve it all at once. Look for both the goods and the bad episodes equally. Dose it to yourself and be brave enough to engage it and try to let the emotions be part of the process. And if you can't do that, keep trying.
Okay, that is great advice. So yeah, I want to thank you all for participating in this discussion. We really got a lot of great insights from all of you. It was nice to hear from Sleep in all 4 of the positions, and also Nathan for giving his perspective on ST sleep and kind of comparing and contrasting that with SF sleep, and then Grace with feminine sensory to give her perspective on how SF sleep might look different in feminine sensory versus SF sleep with masculine sensory. So thank you all so much for coming. So just to kind of give a sneak peek at the next episode of SI Lab, episode number 7, we'll be talking about SF Blast, and we'll have Ricardo as a guest, who is FESI, ESFJ, and we're also hoping to get an ISFJ, SIFE guest, if we can get one as well. So stay tuned for that. If you want to see more SI Lab videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I also make other videos as well, talking about various aspects of OPS. So subscribe to my channel if you want to stay tuned.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for accommodating us and hosting us once again. And yeah, please like and subscribe and all that stuff to her channel.
Yep.
Ring that bell.
For notifications. Yep.
All those things.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.